Hi, this is Don Putnam from Houston, Texas, and you're listening to the College of Stoic Philosophers podcast.
Welcome to the College of Stoic Philosophers podcast, a podcast dedicated to exploring the applied philosophy of traditional Stoicism. The College of Stoic Philosophers is an online school founded in 2008. We at the college endeavor to educate all who would be Stoics and Stoic philosophers who aspire to the good life within the world community. Podcast episodes will include discussions of Stoic history, application, interviews, and much more, all while having some fun, fate permitting. I'm your host, Mark Sterry. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to the College of Stoic Philosophers podcast. Mr. Don Putnam, welcome to the College of Stoic Philosophers podcast. How's it going today there, Don?
Doing great. How are you?
Excellent, my friend. We've been talking for about 20 minutes or a half hour before we started the podcast. We figured we'd better hit record here. Don, where are you zooming in from today?
I'm in the Houston, Texas area in a suburb called Kingwood. Yeah.
What's your weather down there like? Curious.
Right now, we are experiencing unusually warm weather for this time of year. Right now, I'm sitting at 86 degrees, and it's kind of muggy outside. But hopefully, we'll get a cold front. We need some of that northern weather to come our way.
Nice. Here in St. Paul, Minnesota, it is, well, it's getting sunnier now, rainy, 40-some degrees, and I kind of like it.
That's my kind of weather. I grew up in Oregon, so I mean that's the kind of stuff I'm used to. I wish we had it here, but it's okay. Sometimes you have warm Novembers, and sometimes they're nice Novembers in Houston.
How long have you been in Houston?
Well, going back to 23 years, we graduated college in 2001, and we moved to Dallas, Texas area, working for an oil and gas company. We spent about 8 years there in Dallas, and then in 2009, we moved to the Houston area.
Don is a mentor at the College of Stoic Philosophers. You mostly teach SES, right? And also the Heraclitus course.
That's right. Yeah, I mentor several SES Stoic Essential Studies students, and then I've got one active Heraclitus student right now.
How did you discover the college?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to go back a little bit before that, if you don't mind. So it was about 10 years ago, in fact, in May of 2014. I grew up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. People know that as the Mormon Church. And about 2014, I had a lot of stuff going on in my life. I had 4 kids at that time, a wife. I had church responsibilities, work responsibilities, just kind of the run-of-the-mill, a lot of stuff going on. And I would kind of break down emotionally every so often, and then to the point where I'm like, I got to do something about this. It really got dark for a few years there. So I sought out some therapy, a therapist, and I started seeing a therapist, and they kind of helped me deconstruct some of my ideas and why I was arriving at some of these emotions or lack of emotions in some cases. And then I discovered my therapist was using cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. So I did my research at that point, kind of led me to Donald Robertson and Marcus Aurelius Meditations. I think I bought my first copy of Meditations sometime in 2015 and read it. Didn't really understand it a whole lot. I think that led me to Pierre Hadot's The Inner Citadel. When I read that book, light bulbs just started going off. And then I really started taking a deeper dive into Stoicism. That's when I found the Stoicism on Fire podcast at some point, Chris Fisher. And then, of course, he mentioned the College of Stoic Philosophers. And then I think I started taking the SES course. I want to say, I forget, it might have been 2018, 2019 time period. And then I finished that. And then I enrolled in the Marcus Aurelius program. And that's when you and I met eventually with the physics program and everything else along that. So I think I finished up Marcus Aurelius. I think we finished it sometime during the pandemic. So anyway, long story there, but like the almost 10 years worth of activity that eventually led me to the college. And here I am today.
Yes, we met. We both had the incredible opportunity to take physics and Prosoche with
That's right.
physics, ethics, and Prosoche, now that I think
That's
of it,
right.
with the founder of the college, Eric Weigard. What did you learn from physics that let's say, what was your aha moment that would make you think, oh, I get this stuff. I know what he's talking about. He's not crazy.
Yeah, for me, again, it goes back to being raised Mormon, and comparing and contrasting the definition of God from a Mormon perspective. And when I abandoned my religion and I'm like, those values and those dogmas no longer hold sway with me, I don't believe in them. I needed to kind of reconstruct, how do I look at the world? How do I deal with the world? How do I deal with who am I? What am I? Where am I going to go? All those kind of big philosophical questions. So for me, the aha moment, and this is really why I signed up, one of the main reasons I signed up for the College of Stoic Philosophers with SES and the Marcus Aurelius program, was to understand physics. And so basically, how the Stoics describe nature, the cosmos, as Zeus, as God, resonated with me. I remember Eric basically saying, we had to read that book by Thomas Paine, The Age of Reason, right? I don't know if you remember that.
I loved it. Yeah.
That was kind of an eye opener for me as well. And so Eric was kind of describing to us that the Stoic God, or the concept of God, is derived from a rational, reasonable, logical nature, logical perspective, right? And so for me, that resonated. And like you and I were talking about earlier, me personally, again, I think it's worth noting in all these discussions about philosophy that no one knows. As many different philosophies and ideologies that are out there, there are as many different conceptions and beliefs on God or lack of God. So no one knows. No one can point to it and definitively say, well, that's God. It's just basically everybody's ideas. And so for me personally, I like the Stoic conception of God and the physics there. And so again, that and how it was derived and how it's built up, to me, that resonates.
I agree. Like Eric taught us during the physics course, it comes down to voluntary choice, because really none of it's completely provable. He used to say there's a mountain of evidence that made you believe what the Stoics thought was correct, but does come down to voluntary choice. Aren't you going to a philosophy school as well?
Yeah.
And going to a philosophy school, did your thoughts on Stoicism change at all, or did it reinforce your thoughts on Stoicism?
Yeah, so this is going to be really interesting. When I finished Marcus Aurelius course, again, this is all during the pandemic. We were all spending a ungodly amount of time at home and not talking to other people. So I enrolled in an online college and started working on my philosophy degree. I just wanted to explore all the different philosophies out there, and I figured, I might as well get a degree out of this while I'm at it. And so I'm about to finish that up. I'm finishing my courses. I'm taking a few ethics courses, and I'll be done sometime early next year. So the second part, yes, I found myself kind of drifting towards a little bit towards existentialism. I like a lot of what Kierkegaard and Albert Camus have talked about and have written about. And really, when you start talking about Camus' absurd and some of those aspects of it, I go, at least that's really honest. I like their honesty about the existentialist philosophers. When it comes to Stoicism, again, living a day-to-day life, yes, a lot of after reviewing a lot of those philosophies and studying them, I found myself just naturally going back to Stoicism quite often. And so for me, it still holds a strong sway within my mind, and it's worked quite well for me in a day-to-day existence. We're dealing with people, dealing with family, dealing with coworkers, friends, neighbors, all sorts of stuff. I think Stoicism has got some amazing tools, amazing concepts that are applicable in so many aspects of life.
Do you mind sharing like a concrete example of a day or something that happened where your Stoic toolbox, you used that and it improved your life from what you had before?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, I just had an intro with a student of mine for SCS, and we were kind of talking about this. For me, I think the inner dialogue and that discipline of assent and trying to see things as they really are, and understanding that division between what is up to me versus what is not up to me, for me, that is a constant reinforcement of helping me to kind of pause and take a step back. I think Chris talks quite a bit about that. Chris Fisher on his podcast Stoicism on Fire talks quite a bit about that, where you say, well, hold on a second, let me inspect you before I kind of leap into a value judgment. So that tool has served me well quite often. At work, I constantly have people that jump to conclusions. Sometimes I might be working with my boss or manager, and there might be tight deadlines. And I see this quite often where a lot of people jump to conclusions or jump to an answer before taking a step back and saying, hold on a second, what's actually going on here? Let's inspect and make sure that we're not jumping falsely to some conclusion. So for me, that has probably been the single biggest tool that has helped me in personal life, work life, everything else, just to kind of say, slow down, let's take a pause here, let's understand what the event is, and let's make sure that we're recognizing I am putting a value judgment there or somebody else is putting a value judgment there before we kind of move forward. I know the nature of work is such that time is demanding. People want to make a decision. They want to move quickly. And so sometimes you can't always have that luxury. But for me, it has served me personally well.
It kind of spooked me when I heard Chris Fisher talking about we're going to accept a version of God and talk and using that language. Did you have any red flags that came up when you were discovering Stoicism or traditional Stoicism?
No, not so much. So for me, again, I came back. I come from a background of a religion, so the concept of God was nothing new. But what was new was taking a deeper dive into another philosophy and what they described God as. And so, in other words, the college and traditional Stoicism and what the ancients, what Epictetus, what Marcus Aurelius, what Seneca, what a lot of these other ancient Stoics talked about. But as I got into that, I'm like, oh, okay, what we're really talking about is an all-encompassing universal cosmos is God. We are living and we are little embodiments of that divine nature of the universe, right? And so again, no one knows, but the more I think about it, and you and I have kind of talked about, like, I guess his name is Philip Goff, and some of this consciousness and all that kind of stuff. You start looking at things and going, yeah, that there's something there. Why is it that humans exist? Why is it that humans exhibit some type of consciousness? And then you start looking at other biological entities, and you start going, yeah, that there's a will there, and that's what philosophy is trying to explore. And so when you start looking at God is nature, God is the cosmos, to me that's a very acceptable notion, as opposed to what I was raised on, and maybe a lot of other Christian religions and other religions, where there is a single entity, a human, almost a super divine human, that is the creator and has the will and does everything in the universe and kind of like pulls the string, like as almost if it's this individual man or entity, and they're kind of like this puppet master behind the whole universe. And to me, the more I think about it, and especially after learning about the Stoic conception of God, I'm like, that just doesn't make sense to me anymore. And so for me, it wasn't a red flag, but it was a clear picture and a more defensible position on God.
Since you came to Stoicism through therapy, are you still interested in using traditional Stoicism or Stoicism in your potential psychotherapy journey?
Yes, I mean, I think there's a lot of practitioners out there. I know there are a few therapists that use kind of CBT, that use Stoicism as a tool for helping people get through emotional challenges and events in life. I think that Stoicism brings a lot to that, and so yeah, I'm kind of like going forward. I have another 5-6 years to finish out kind of my corporate career. My intent then is to then retool and become a therapist. I think there's a lot of tool sets out there, and I think Stoicism has a lot to bring to that mindset as well. And obviously, again, I mean, you go read Donald Robertson. I think he's got a lot of great stuff in terms of his books, in terms of what he talks about, and I think it brings a lot of aid and a lot of help to people as they deal with challenges. So yes, I do see that as an opportunity.
So, Don, if listeners want to get to know you more or get familiar with some of your work, how would they find you online?
Yeah, I mean, I am on social media, and I also have my own blog. I write extensively. For me, when I learn things, it helps to remember what I've learned when I write it out and really think about it and put it in essay form. So a lot of my writings are rockyrook.com. I think I've got a Twitter account. I think it's Rocky Rook Tweets. And I think those are the two main areas in social media that I post to quite a bit. So rockyrook.com is my site, and then Rocky Rook Tweets on X, I guess is now what it's called.
And what's some subjects you explore on your website?
So on my website, I mean, it has a lot of writing. I've written on just, stupid stuff, funny stuff, philosophical stuff, religion. So I hit on all sorts of subjects, but mainly my site is dedicated to a lot of Stoic writings. I've written a lot of essays in school, so you're going to see a lot of essays that relate to ethics and existentialism and other types of philosophical conversations. The other thing too is, as we mentioned, I do teach the Heraclitus course. When I went through the Heraclitus course, I wrote a big essay on Heraclitus, and so that type of essay is also on my website as well.
For folks that are wondering what the Heraclitus course is, the impetus came from when I was a student with Don under Eric Weigard. He would talk about how he would battle insomnia, and he would wander around trying to remember Heraclitus fragments.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he would tell these great stories about how Zeno went to the Oracle of Delphi, and the Oracle of Delphi, when he was creating the Stoic philosophy, and the Oracle of Delphi says something in the lines of lie with the dead or sleep with the dead or something. I like that kind of stuff anyway. And what apparently Zeno took from that was to learn from people previous to him. And he went to Heraclitus, which became, as Chris Fisher says, the grandfather of Stoic physics with his fragments. When I learned about that, going to class with Don, that literally changed my life. There was two things I went through with you that changed my trajectory as a Stoic and a person. One was learning about Heraclitus, and two was learning about panpsychism.
Yeah.
Which is, and then so I do a lot of work with the college and develop the Heraclitus course and the Stoic Cosmic Consciousness course. So if you are interested in some of those, go to the college and check that out. I got a kick out of that. Don, once the Heraclitus course got up and running, Don took it and wrote this beautiful paper. I'll never forget reading it. I was sitting at my cabin, my family's cabin, overlooking this lake, and I had to text him. I'm like, Don, this is incredible. We pitched it to the e-journal, and you can read it there as well. Don is one of the most well-spoken, smartest people I've ever met in my entire life. And thanks for taking it, and thanks for being on the show as well, and being there for me as these interesting points in my philosophical journey.
Absolutely. And Mark, really appreciate you, and thank you for putting that course together. It really was a great course. I can't say enough about it. I've learned so much. It gave me an opportunity in between classes that I was taking to read a couple of Heraclitus books, really think about it, digest it, and figure out, what was Heraclitus trying to do. The wonderful thing about Heraclitus is that he is kind of a mystery. And so as you read it and then kind of look at your own thoughts and study your own thoughts, it reveals some things about yourself as well. So kudos to you, Mark, for putting that course together, and I can't wait for the consciousness course to come out. I will be first in line to sign up for that course once it's out.
Well, thank you there, Don. Yeah, I refer to Heraclitus fragments almost as much as my Stoic practice. So I'll look at things like in a sense of flux and war and things like that. We're going to do a podcast down the road with you and I and possibly Paul Cleverly or whoever else is involved in the Heraclitus course. And we'll have a whole episode just talking about our buddy Heraclitus.
Awesome. Can't wait. That'll be super fun. Super fun. Can't wait to do that one.
Thank you for tuning in to the College of Stoic Philosophers podcast. Please visit thecollegeofstoicphilosophers.org for information on the college, e-journal, and course offerings. Till next time, pro cop time.